Hey, oh, sorry. Yeah.
What do you want me to do once it hits 36?
Oh, just shut down the test. Good afternoon, everybody. Sorry about that. As you guys and gals know, I was in one of our tests today. So let's get started with the top 10-ish. And sorry, I haven't even read this yet, other than a very quick scan, so this should be interesting. Number 1, work in progress. Tech item, improved ability system. So as we've been saying for months now, we keep making improvements in order to, I don't know, get mages in, to get other classes in, to get all the abilities in. And over the last week, Christina ported fall damage and rubble collision damage to the improved system. So when you guys play in the fall, just expect to be hurt more. B, Christina also ported the slash commands to the improved system. Caleb optimized the data capture inside the scripting layer. First pass of importing the Winter's Shadow, Forest Stalker, and Blackguard to the improved ability system has been completed. More classes. Wiley has implemented all of the skill components for the heavy fighters and will be moving to traits and shouts next week. So there's a whole lot of gameplay stuff there for a tech item. Number 2, work in progress. Another tech item, physics. Colin has refactored the physics and network state, and just so before anyone worries, oh my god, they refactored everything. No, it's when you hear the word refactor, it does mean change, or it does mean redo, but it doesn't mean we redid everything. It could be, like Max editing a paragraph of mine. It doesn't mean he rewrote the entire document. It just means he changed a paragraph. To the physics network state to make our physics networking more flexible. And this is needed, of course, for things like BPOs. Number 3, another tech design item, the Ability Builder UI. So, Mr. Koo has made great progress on the Ability Builder with the primary sections complete and is working on additional pieces. We'll be covering this in today's update. Once again, more gameplay. Number 4, work in progress, Tech UI Ability Bar. So JB spent some time this week reworking it. Soon players will be able to move the ability buttons and transfer abilities from the builder to the hotbar. I know, this should have been done a while ago, but, we told you folks we had to wait until we had a chance to put in the new UI, get that working, because that was obviously a much higher priority than implementing this for the old system. So now that JB had some time to do this, yes, he got to it, which is great. Because, when you ask JB to do something like this, you got to remember you've heard the hardest working man in show business. He is the most overtasked engineer in CSE. So think James Brown, think JB, essentially the same. Number 5, work in progress. Another tech item, trebuchet ammo types. So Ben has been working on fleshing out the design for realm-specific trebuchet ammo because, of course, you kind of want different trebuchets. You want different ammo. You want that per realm, per intent. You don't want every bit of ammo to do exactly the same thing. That's not only kind of boring, but kind of defeats the whole design of the game or the principle behind the game. Number 6, another tech item, live scenario scoreboard. So AJ created a live scenario scoreboard, and it's now in review. Obviously, we've had scoreboard at the end of the game. Now we're going to have a live one as well. And no, this does not mean we are putting out at any time in the near future, I don't know, a PUBG, a Battle Royale game. We've said this from the beginning. We are using scenarios to test all sorts of things about Camelot Unchained, about the engine itself. And so having scoreboards and things like that, kind of useful, especially as we want to get you people to actually come in and play more so we can get even more data. Number 7, another tech item, chat improvements. So AJ has made improvements to the chat window. You can now click on the chat input to start typing. Thank the Lord. And left clicking on a chat line of text will copy it to your clipboard. So yes, thank heavens we're now in 1999 technology. Number 8, wands and scepters. John and Dion completed work on 5 wands for the Arthurian Flame Weaver and scepters for the TDD Druid. Sorry, it's been a long week. Lots of talking for me. Bunch of interviews. Lots of interviews.
The Flame Weaver?
Did I say the?
It's
oh my God! It says Flame Weaver. Hey, who wrote this?
New class.
Yeah. Who invented the new class?
Did I get one wrong? Which one? Oh, I did that. Yes, I did that. Sorry. Flame Warden.
Who did it?
I did it.
Who?
I called it the Flame Weaver, didn't I?
Yes, you did. And see, I told you I did not read this beforehand. I would have caught it.
Along with the Wave Warden. Right?
And the Wave Warden. That's great. All right, sorry. So that's a surprise. We actually have a no. We don't. This is what happens when I don't actually read the copy beforehand. And if nothing else, this should prove to you all once and for all, this is never scripted. We are never on script for this. For these things, unlike other games, and there's no problem when certainly other developers have very scripted, very worked out, interactions even between people. This is it. I get this. Usually I read it before. In this case, I didn't, and this is what happens. Number 9. Hey, we got this right. Oh, an odd item, the Wave Weaver Gauntlets. So. Michelle completed concepts for the last 2 of 5 gauntlets for the Viking Wave Weaver class, and John and Dion have begun work on the in-game models and will finish these up early next week. I'm sorry, folks. I have been speaking all week, had interview this morning and other things as well, and I am talked out. I am absolutely talked out. I think after this, I'm going to today just go home. I should, and I got more next week. It's been a really busy week. Sorry. Number 10, sound scenario music. So DB started working on new music to accompany our new Siege scenario. Number 11, work in progress, sound effects, mage abilities. So DB has finished the SFX for the Flame Warden. Oh, he got it right that time. Starter abilities. They are now ready for implementation by our engineers. Hey, boy, again, gameplay. More like a game every day. Number 12, work in progress, VFX mage abilities. Mike finished the first pass on the Flame Warden VFX. He's continuing work on the other 2 classes, other 2 mage classes. God, I gotta edit this like crazy. Jeez. Number 13, work in progress, art, magic mortar concepts. So we've completed several new concepts of our magic mortars, smaller, one-man deployable siege engines. So, when you guys see them in the game, their intent is to add a little color to things, make things a little bit more interesting to see, as well as to set up for their role and other things like them in RVR, and especially, obviously, in, sieging a keep. Number 14, number 15, no, number 14, art, Characters 2.0. Gosh, I know, I bet you all are really tired of hearing Characters 2.0 and not seeing it, but it's coming, and we keep doing more to it. So, this one, number A, Tyler continued to go through all the currently completed work finding and fixing bugs. Work finding. So I guess Tyler was trying to find new work for himself, because that's what it sounds like. That's not what he meant, but hey, that's, again...
it's a missing comma.
Yeah, I know,
okay.
Yeah. So we're planning on integrating this next week as we continue to look for bugs and further polish everything. Item B, the Valks. We've completed the undergarment set. And they will be available at the CSE store for sale. No, they won't be. Well, no. LODs. We completed most everything on the asset side and plan to start integrating these after Dave wraps up the supporting code. Obviously, the LODs are really important. It's what allows us to have better, and not just us, of course, all developers, to have characters that look better up close, but then as you get further and further away, you can't see them quite as well. That's a reduction, of course, in the number of polygons and tries that are used for the image. And you have to do that in really every game, but in a game like ours, where today I had to stop the test, or stop my part in the test, when we were at 34-ish, 100 of our arcs, lotting is kind of important. So, last and certainly not least, the animation and weighting polish. So, Sandra completed the 3 archer classes, as well as the Luca Pan variation. Joe completed the hair assets and is working on further weighting polish. And Scott completed further cleanup on the Physician, Empath, and Stone Healer. So, that's it on the top 10-ish. As much as my mouth and tongue especially could use a break, let's go to the Q&A, folks.
All right, and as we start the Q&A, I have to share with you this great pun that Riley Stang on the YouTube chat gave us. In response to 14B, Valkyries, we completed the undergarment set. Riley Stang says, is that for Valctoria's Secret?
Ha-ha! Good one. Was a good one.
RH asks, what would be the advantages and disadvantages of using a magic mortar over a trebuchet?
So magic mortars are, really meant to be single-player weapons. If you want to draw an analogy, think of like the tube rockets in World War II, things that players, in this case, who can't get a trebuchet or can't find other people to operate their trebuchet with them, can still have something to use. They also have very different types of ammo, and will have much greater variability in what they can fire. So think of them as like, the Swiss Army knife, at least for a while with this game, where we can try different types of ammo, projectiles, effects, and use the magic mortar as a delivery system, which is a lot less complicated than trying to build a new, a new siege engine for every different type of ammo we might want to use. So we certainly think they'll play a role during testing and during beta. Will they make it into the final cut? It depends on what else we have in terms of siege engines. I would expect them to, at least in the smaller form, to stick around through the, until the game, or when the game launches.
Mongo Gnome asks, what concepts do you have for CC immunity? I hate it to be CC'd to death.
Yeah, look, this is the same thing we said from the beginning. You have to have CC in a game like this. You have to. There has to be a way to deal with Zergs, to deal with, crowd control, right? Crowds. But on the other hand, we don't want it to be a game where you literally can be CC'd to death. So finding the right balance, finding the right way to do it, that's going to be quite the challenge for us. Not technically, but on the design side. And as you know, it's been a challenge for everyone. Dark Age had a great, CC system, and lots of people didn't like it. Lots of people, thought it, you could be locked down, you could be, taken out of the action for far too long. But we'll have to see. But I do think I do know we're willing to try different things. And I think at the end of the day, we'll come up with what is at least a great solution for the vast majority of people, because as you've heard me say, also for far too long, you can never make everyone happy.
Tatooine asks, would you consider a challenge to see how many yes, no, or undetermined questions you can do before you start to expound on an answer?
Oh God, no. Especially the way I am right now. Like I said, it's been a long week. A good week, but a long week. So, yeah, brain not fully functional.
Taladar asks, any streams coming up that will cover the topics of art, coding, or other aspects of development?
Separate streams? Yeah, well, sure. That's up to any of the engineers who want to do a stream. Andrew may want to do a stream. We're going to have a stream with the mages. As I said in the test a few minutes ago, what we're waiting for is until the abilities are implemented, and we're sure they're working. They may not be perfect, but working. Because at that point, we know that when we make the presentation, we won't be changing our minds a couple days later or a week later and say, hey, the stuff we told you about last week, and never mind. We don't want to do that. So as soon as get the thumbs up from Ben in engineering, we can make that presentation.
Mr. Peace 84 asks, which options will mages have in terms of weapon choices, seeing that wands and scepters seem to be faction restricted?
Well, wands and scepters are certainly what they'll use when they want to use their abilities, but mages can use regular weapons. We've said from the beginning that weapons are not, in general, going to be class or race bound. You as a mage can absolutely use a sword. You won't be as effective as somebody who is a fighter because they have the special abilities. So, when you're using your abilities, you certainly want to use, the right item, just as you would as a fighter. But you can pick up any item in the game. Well, any weapon in the game.
Tavermod asks, will there be some very rarely appearing random flaws built into siege ammo to reflect our unrealistic expectations of our poor ammo-preparing underlings? I'd like that.
I've said also from the beginning that randomness, I think, needs to play a role in a game like this. So whether it is a flaw where, it just kind of blows up in your face or bad things will happen, there is going to be some randomness in this game. How much we can do will depend on, just how much time we have. And that's something that is really cool, of course, but it is also something that we certainly wouldn't hold up going live for.
Hamblepants asks, will Characters 2.0 include higher res textures on armor in the first pass? Higher res as in similar to the higher res shield and weapon textures being used currently.
Yeah, the intent is everything is going to look better in this pass. Hopefully that will be the case. What we've seen so far is that it is. And at the same time, we're trying to make things more performant. Because that, while we certainly don't need extra frame rate right now, I want to make sure that if we can have additional frames to burn, then we can go ahead and burn them. And, so making something more performant, cleaning up bugs, kind of what you need to do.
Salty Chew asks, what's the point of having a scoreboard? Is it going to be translated to a Herald type situation for winter 2019 release, or is it testing progression in beta 1?
A bunch of different things. Nice thing about a scoreboard, of course, is we can put anything we want on it. We've already said, as you pointed out, we'll have an equivalent of a Herald, and so the ability to track how well people are doing in certain areas, to have it being displayed. Certainly there's always a little bit of bragging rights there, and plus it's fun. So, a lot of different reasons for it. Obviously in the real game, that's not going to be something that you're going to see inside the game as you took a keep or taking a keep. That kind of a scoreboard won't be displayed. But for scenario testing, it's very useful, really useful.
Hamblepants asks, if stats grow from use, does this include run speed stats, and what's stopping me from AFK auto-running into a wall to boost my stats artificially, or does that stat only progress during combat?
Now, what I think is that you should only progress that during combat. Or, as I've talked about, and I talked about this, I think, early on, and I haven't talked about running since, so I actually don't know what the answer is today, that certain stats can be leveled up or skilled up through normal use, even not in combat, but they can't get all the way to a level, to a certain point, whatever you end up, we end up calling it, without getting into combat, whereas other things have to be leveled up in combat. Now, auto running into a wall would be considered an exploit. Running, however, from one end of the world to another, that wouldn't be an exploit. Now, could you do that through a macro, through botting? Sure, of course you could. At least you could try. A little more dangerous in an RVR game, of course. So there's a little bit of Darwinism at work there. But in terms of running into a wall, yeah, that we would consider that an exploit.
Brando2 asks, all things being equal, which will be easier, repairing a broken wall or making trebuchet ammo?
Oh my God, I've never been asked that question. So repairing a broken wall during combat would be harder. I had to think about that for a moment. In non-combat, it wouldn't be. Reason being is that during combat, of course, we don't want players to immediately be able to fix holes in walls. On the other hand, depending on the state of the realm, depending on the state of the server, we may want to allow builders to speed up repairs to the world. In that way, you can have a pretty decent balance of, okay, the invaders came in, they did lots of damage, and now you can repair it faster than you built it. Obviously not if they raise the whole thing, but even then it should still go a little bit faster. Versus, hey, we're going to make the siege last forever because we've just got a bunch of builders, and they're just going to repair things as quickly as the folks firing the trebuchets could fix them. That would be obviously a terrible outcome that we can't allow, because it takes the whole, would take the whole point out of sieging, which is usually to win. And you can't really win if there's a bunch of builders sitting behind the walls, repairing things.
The Lotus Wraith asks, you look tired. Have you tried chamomile tea and lavender scented baths? Also, will there be built-in options for mages that want to use daggers or swords or any odd builds?
Yeah, well, you can just pick up a weapon and use it. Whether we'll go down with, say, secondary skills in weapons would be, something that we talk about in the future. If we wanted to allow, for example, as we expand the game, to have more secondary skill tracks for all the classes. In terms of looking tired, I am. I am absolutely exhausted. I was hoping actually to take off some time last week and didn't get, wasn't able to do that. So yeah, definitely a little bit on the tired side. Plus, it's been a long week.
Lotoween asks, when can we expect stretch goals to be reinstated?
Probably when we start streaming again, or start streaming. So, sounds, I know, like a broken record, but we've been saying the same thing from the beginning of beta, that once we get to the point in beta that we can stream it live, if not all the time, just, really stream it live, then certain things are going to happen. And that would be one of them. Just to let you know, because it's a perfectly fair question, I haven't given one moment's thought, not one, to the next stretch goals. I have no idea what they are. I have, just no concept whatsoever what they might be. I've have not thought about it. It's, just nothing that's factored into my thinking.
On the YouTube chat, Zyrus asks, is the tentative release date 2019 or 2020?
Same thing we've been saying. We are hoping very much to still release the game this year. We're certainly hiring towards it, and so we're hiring certainly to put us in a better advantage. I'm absolutely interviewing at a higher rate now to try to ensure that we can get it done. So keep your fingers crossed. We're doing everything we can. We really are. I think I have 5 more programmers in the in my list for the next week, and I've had interviews all week. So we're getting a lot done. Hopefully, we'll find some really good people to join the really good people who are already here.
Maitreya on the YouTube chat asks, will players be able to destroy structures of their own realm? And if they can't, what if you need to be able to destroy a bridge for strategic reasons?
So yeah, that's a great question. So the easy answer is no. In general, you can't. However, that's your second part about destroying a bridge. Yeah, that's something that we should allow players to do. And the question is the right way to do it. I think there is a right way to do it, but we haven't given any thoughts to the design of that. And that's something that'd be relatively easy to do. If bridges, for example, are only on realm-owned property, then the king can declare, bad timing to say this, sorry, I don't mean anything by it, to declare an emergency. I know, but that's what it is. There's no other way to say it. And I don't want to, in any way, to seem to be supportive of the orange one.
Oh my God.
Well, on a constitutional basis, don't get me started of what I think of this as an ex-lawyer who was kind of big on 2 areas of law, constitutional law, IP. But that's essentially what would happen. The realm would be under attack. The king declares an emergency. Certain things would then happen because of it. Like I said, no other good way to say it.
Mumblefish asks, could campaigns be used like player-created open PvP events to try and generate activity between random players/groups? And if so, can any costs incurred by the creator be recouped through, say, a successful siege?
Sure. That's easy. Not easy to do, but easy to say yes to.
Exbatesh asks, in the forums, there were discussions about siege time windows. Some want large-scale day-long battles, and others like the idea of a time window when buildings are vulnerable to prevent night raids. What should we expect here?
So, once again, today seems like today's the day that Mark is going to say, I've been saying this from the beginning. So, and it's a good question. There's nothing wrong with the question at all. So the idea of siege time windows is certainly not a new one. It's something that, as you say correctly, people have asked for or talked about on the forums. Other games have used it. It's not a new concept. Is it something that I myself would like to see in the game? No, I would not. I don't think it defeats the purpose or the defeats the purpose. The defeats are better. Got to walk on them. But it makes the world feel less immersive. It doesn't mean it doesn't make a better game, and that's the balance we'd have to look at. But it certainly does make the world feel a little less immersive. So, are there ways we can achieve the stated goals of this game, of having an open world, of allowing people to wander around it and, have lots of mayhem? But can we do that without a window? Can we do that with allowing raids or 4 a.m. alarm clock raids? I think the answer is yes. I think we can do it without those. It's a matter of combination of things like obviously the guards, health of the building, health of defenses. There's a lot of things we can try. On the other hand, and being as honest as always on these things, if we find those don't work and scheduled raids are the better way to go, then we would do it. It's not what I want to do. It's certainly not my preferred path. But at the end of the day, I've been also very consistent about saying that we will make whatever decision we need to make on the basis of what makes the best game. And so, time will tell on this. I think we can do it without it, but it's not a terrible idea. It's not bad. It's not awful. It's just different.
Mongo Gnome just wants to say, thank you all at CSE for trying to save my beloved MMO genre. You are my last hope on the horizon. Thank you all for the hard work.
You're welcome. I hope that we're not the only hope that MMO gamers have. As you folks know, long-term, online gamer and developer. I would like to think that there are other folks out there doing interesting things who can complete what they set out to do. We certainly are trying. We certainly are putting in the time, the effort, and the money to make it happen. And as you folks have seen from the tests in the last few weeks, on the tech side, we are better than ever. The engine is working beautifully. We are supporting the large-scale battles that we talked about, and actually well above the large-scale battles that we talked about. So, as you can hear from the top 10-ish today, more and more is going in terms of games, game stuff. We've hired more people. We have a new person starting on Monday. We had somebody else join us this week, and we have a lot more interviews. So we're doing our bit for king and country, kings and country, kings and realms. There we go, kings and realms.
Awesome. Brando2 asks, we have the scenario portion of the Dragon Circle being made and tested, but will we see the once mentioned lore aspect of it in the near future?
I hadn't really thought about that, but I can certainly find the time to do that. It just slipped my mind. So thanks for the reminder.
Scott Florence asks, when an army takes over a player-built fortress, is the aim on the front line for them to be more likely to tear it down and build their own, or to make it most feasible to add to the ruins that are left, and thus perhaps better off leaving as much as possible?
So keep in mind that what you're seeing in the scenarios is not how the live game will work in terms of the ease of destructibility of the keeps. The keeps in the scenarios are absolutely meant to be, not total couple shots and knock them down, but they're meant to be easy to knock down. In the live game, you're not going to be able to knock down a keep in 5-10 minutes. It doesn't make any sense to do that in the game. It would be terrible design when it comes to our type of game. So if you think about what you might be doing during an evening, and could you take whether it's a fort, a keep, another structure, and potentially destroy it that night? Well, if it's a well-defended one and a well-built one, the answer is no. Even if you, almost always no. If you came with a giant Zerg and you had all the siege equipment that you could possibly carry and, caravan in, could you, take out a decent-sized structure? Yeah, you absolutely could. But you're not going to have that very often. When you are spending a lot of the nights going out there, it's more to capture and hold, or capture and raid, or capture and slow down, versus, raise. Razing to the ground is a BFD. I mean, a giant BFD when it comes to large and built structures. They have to be. If you guys and gals, because you will, have 4 a.m. raids or just off-hour raids, depending on whether you want to play on a European server, a North American server. If we allow that to happen, we'll drive away our players, because if they can go to bed and have a keep and one they built as opposed to one they just captured, and have it taken from them like that, and then have it destroyed. So even if you capture it back, you have to rebuild everything. There'll be a lot of anger about that. So expect there to be lots of ways to have a siege, to take over structures, but don't expect simply to be able to, hey, we took it and now we can knock it down in 30 minutes. It's just not going to work that way. It can't. At least in the real game as opposed to scenarios.
All right. Mumblefish asks, as there's been an old school beta and alpha, will there be an old school release, or should we expect the unexpected?
Well, depending how you mean old school release, the answer would be certainly old school in the sense of, hey, we're not going to have DLC day one. That I can guarantee. We're certainly not going to go with an expansion pack on release, or even right afterwards. That would be silly, and that would be wrong. Extenders, absolutely, but not expansions. And you folks know, or the new folks, you know, an extender pack is something we give to our players. An expansion pack is something we sell. So there will be no surprises there. Could there be any surprises in terms of what we would do in the game? Absolutely. But those would be for fun and not say, oh, I don't know, fun and profit.
Zyrus on the YouTube chat asks, given the recent dev layoffs in the industry, would you support a dev union?
Yeah, I've been asked that a lot. So, boy, some of you folks are not going to like this answer. I generally don't like unions. I love unions when they are there for worker safety, for health, to prevent absolutely true exploitation. I think they've served a noble cause in the past. Absolutely noble. If you look back at the history of unions in the United States, and some of the reasons they were created, you know, conditions in company towns, exploitation, real exploitation by the owners of businesses. I thought they were fabulous, and I still absolutely would support them today. On the other hand, the game industry, while it has its problems, and it really does, those can be addressed, I think, without unions. Now, I am a huge, massive supporter of treating teams right. Certainly, you know, that happened at Mythic. That's happening here. Everyone in this company is bought into the company, owns a piece of the company, shares in the success of the company. It was the exact same thing at Mythic. I think if more companies adopted the way I do business when it comes to that, you would solve a lot of those other problems. Same thing, you know, when it comes to, for example, crunch time. I think that it's a disgrace that companies who, even if they're paying good wages to people, take advantage of their people by crunching without compensation. You know, you can do that when you're young and poor. No problem with that. You're trying to get a product out. You're trying to keep the wolves from the doors. You know, but when you're a large company, and when, or you're a successful company, and you treat your people this way, that's bad. And I think we can do that and should do that, change it, without needing a union. I think the labor laws should be changed. You know, while the whole point of salaried employees is that they're not on the hourly basis, there needs to be a compromise there so that people don't feel like they are being exploited by being asked to work 80-hour weeks or 100-hour weeks and getting food as a thank you. You know, that's just insane, you know, when you're a company that size. And sometimes, look, at a lot of studios, the people who run the studios have no control over it because that's how the large company operates. Or again, the companies that are small, or companies that even have the money, if their team isn't invested in the game or the company's success because they don't get stock. I am incredibly proud of how I run CSE from that perspective. I'm certainly not perfect as a CEO. No one is. But the one thing I can say without any fear of contradiction, because it's all in the paperwork, that everyone here benefits by that. So I think there's a lot of things that should be done and should be reformed within the industry. But I think, unfortunately, unionization won't really help. And I do have some problems with unions, as you know, when you read some of the stories of some of the unions and their evolution over the decades, they've put their own survival ahead of the workers. You know, they've put their own dues and benefits, rake that was taken by the guys at the top, versus what's good for the individual, you know, workers. And so, you know, it's a complicated issue. I do absolutely support and always encourage better working conditions, and most importantly, share with your team. It's that simple. There's nothing complicated about it. If every single company out there just did that, a lot of the reasons that people feel exploited or feel discouraged would go away. Same with proper payment, you know, of bonuses, and again, sharing in the success. You know, just do the right thing, and you know, you have no need for unions. But if companies continue to do the wrong things, then you know, the call to unions to unionize will be heard more, and it's a shame, because I think we can all do better without putting somebody or another group between us. Because, you know, and I'll end my mini rant. Thank you. I think that so many of the people who do run game companies are, at least start out as decent, you know, human beings. And if everyone would just act like one, then we would have an even better industry to work in. Because whatever the problems are with the game industry, and again, there are plenty, the one thing you can say about the established studios, and especially the studios that are making a lot of money with existing games, is many of them do share, you know, nicely with their team, and do, you know, provide really good working conditions, and salaries certainly in the industry have gone up and outpaced inflation. So, you know, I think there are ways that we can do it without unions, but if we can't, and some of the things that have happened over the decades continue to happen, then unions might be the only solution. And as somebody who's been doing this for almost all my life, I hope that's not the answer, but if it is, then we have no one to blame but ourselves as game developers and publishers for, I don't know, very simply, having our heads up our ass. How's that for an ending for... God, that's so good. I can't top that.
I think that was pretty good.
Yeah, hey folks, I'm sorry. That was just a perfect way to end today's conversation. I don't think we're going to have a test this weekend. We may have another one shortly. I want to talk to Tim about some data he may have gathered in the last hour. If we do, we may just open up the servers again. I'll let you know. Other than that, again, everything is going great. Team is growing. Game is being developed nicely. Yeah, you know, all is well. And like I said, a lot more interviews. I know I have 5, and another one may have just come in that I've been expecting. So, yeah, all is good. So with that, I will say have a happy Friday. Enjoy the weekend, and I'll see you folks next week.
See you later.